Hi, this is Emily Agnew with another Listening Post video. This is a companion video to the article that I wrote a couple weeks ago about boundaries, the one with the skunks. And I wanted to just tell you about some experiences I had. It was shortly after I left my marriage of 13 years, and I had a most educational series of experiences involving me moving 6 times in 6 years, which for a highly sensitive person, it's not an exaggeration to say it was brutal. I initially moved into 2 rooms out by the airport with 2 guys. It was an unusual situation, but they were both very kind, but we were right by the airport, and the flights going by at all hours of day and night, and also sharing a kitchen and a bathroom with 2 guys. And really different hours of coming and going. My daughter and I each had a room. She was only 4. It didn't feel right. And I jumped at the chance when a year later, some friends had a kind of a treehouse apartment. It was a beautiful apartment that looked out into the trees, and that was so much better. But then I had another. They were redoing their slate roof, so for many, many months there were men crawling on the roof and pounding all day, and I worked at home during the day. So I found that really, really challenging, and then I had to move because they sold their house, and the new landlords doubled the rent. So I moved into another place and was just getting settled a couple months in when the doorbell rang, and I went down to answer it, and someone was at the door, and I figured out it was someone come to foreclose. They had come to turn off the utilities, and they thought that I was the wife of the owner who was being foreclosed, and that I was lying to them, that I didn't know what was going on. It was horrible. So I was out of there within about a month and moved into a place that was provisional because it was being sold. It belonged to a friend, and we didn't know to the last minute if we were going to have something. It was one of the more stressful things I've ever dealt with. I've never had that situation of wondering where I would have a roof over my head. So that place was a really nice place. It was clean and everything, but the new owner decided to renovate upstairs, which was great. He was investing in the property, and it involved using a drywall saw. So 8 hours a day for several months after he started working on that place, all day it would be, like it would shake the entire house. And I was working at home, right? I was working on my Reed business at the time and teaching, and oh my gosh. So that came to an end. And then some new tenants moved in. They were 2 lovely young 20-somethings, very responsible, worked hard during the week, but at night they would go out. In the weekends they would go out and they'd have a good time, and they would drink a lot, and they'd come home at 1 o'clock, like just wide awake, and they'd bring people home with them and be tearing around upstairs in their boots, and my poor daughter was like trying to sleep downstairs, and I'm sleeping in the living room. And so I would go up, and I was becoming increasingly desperate because we really needed our sleep. And I went up and asked them if they could possibly, stay aware of the fact that their footsteps were really, really loud, and we could hear their voices until 3 in the morning. And, oh yeah, we'll try. So I remember the next week it happened again. And I was so angry. And remember what I was saying about boundaries, that what Brene Brown said, that compassionate people are boundaried people. And I just could not find a way, right, to create a boundary that would give us the peace and quiet that we needed. So I was really angry, and I went upstairs, and I literally had my hand poised to bang on the door and say, "Shut up." I was so angry. And at that very moment, I always wonder if maybe they felt, because they couldn't hear, they didn't know I was out there, but I heard one of them say, "Hey, you guys, shh. Remember, she got her kid downstairs, they're trying to sleep." And at that moment, my anger melted away, and I had kind of an epiphany. I went downstairs, and I just started to cry. I cried and cried. I cried all the tears. It's there again now. I felt ashamed that, here I was, 40-something, living in an apartment in a kind of yuppie area where I really was kind of the odd man out, like in Sesame Street. One of these things doesn't go with the other. I didn't really belong there, and I was, I couldn't find a way to provide, a quiet place for my daughter and me. We didn't have a yard. I just felt so, and I was exhausted from not being able to sleep from all the noise. I had really worked hard to try and improve our circumstances. And so all that sadness came out, and I was able to have compassion for myself, and also I had compassion for them. It hit me. These are the things that I learned. First of all, that they were doing the very, very best they could. I really, really do believe that people are always doing the best they can. And it may not look pretty, but it's the best they can given the resources they have, even if it looks terrible. And that's really a first step towards setting clean boundaries, because if you truly believe that the person is not doing their best and that they could be doing better, and you've asked them, I'm not saying don't ask people, like I asked them if they could be quieter, but if you've made reasonable inquiries and they still aren't changing, there's some reason that they can't, and whatever it is, it's not under your control. So that's the second thing I learned was, it just really sank in. You cannot control other people. You can give them the chance to help you meet your needs better, like I offered them the chance to try to help me meet my needs. But it wasn't unreasonable, really, for them to be up late sometimes, like on weekend nights, and in any case, it wasn't in my control. So accepting that is also a key part of setting boundaries, because if you're not accepting that, you'll keep trying to change them, right? And, if you think that somehow you can control them, you'll keep trying to change them. So that was huge. And then the third thing was just for me to be really, really honest with myself. I had said that in my article last week, that, being clear and clean and consistent with your boundaries and being yourself are key aspects of having clean boundaries. But in this case, what it meant, being myself, meant not just expressing myself to someone else. It meant being honest with myself that for me, too much stands or falls on my living situation to be able to live in an apartment that's subject to other people's noise. I just can't do it. I had to have my own roof over my head. And shortly after that, my partner, Duke, and I, who are still together, we made the decision to move in together and to rent a house together. And I cannot tell you, I'll never forget that first night in our new house. We were exhausted from moving all day and stuff. But we went to bed, and we lay down in the bed, and I looked up the ceiling, and I thought, there is no way I'm going to hear a sound from above me. And my whole body just relaxed. Being in our own space, which I have been fortunate to have that ever since, So that was a case of me, really realizing what I needed. And in the meantime, I would say if I had been clearer, I would have spent more time mourning my limitations, because I was doing everything I could to get us into a better situation. And I just financially didn't have the means yet to get a house. And pooling our resources, Duke and I were able to get a house, and that's just made all the difference. But this really goes to the heart of what it means to be a highly sensitive person, and especially a self-employed highly sensitive person. The question is, what are your needs, and what do you need to do to meet those? And in my case, so many of my needs stand or fall on the peace and nurturing of where I live, that's an absolutely key element of my life. It's a big priority for us, like where we live, and we have a peaceful place now in this office. I have a really, really nice space. I can shut the door when I need to and have my privacy. There's no one else's noise I ever have to deal with. It's really great. But so those are the three things that came out of that experience. It was a real turning point for me, because I was able to generalize that, learning that you're just really accepting that I just cannot control other people, that they're doing the best they can, that enables me to have compassion for me and for them, no matter how ugly it looks on either side, and that then it really frees me up to be real. What's really happening here, and given what's happening, what do I need to do to take care of my needs? So that's my story about boundaries for today. Thanks a lot for listening, and I'll be back in a couple weeks with another article at the beginning of next month.